Today we have a very special guest with us. I feel the energy in the room just sitting here with you already, Professor. We are here with Professor Rose-Marie Belle Antoine. She is the Pro Vice-Chancellor and Principal of the St. Augustine campus for the University of the West Indies. It is such a pleasure to sit with you, Professor.
Delighted to be here.
Thank you so much for your time and energy. I know it's going to be worth every second. So let's get straight to it. We are discussing the expansion of the cannabis industry in Trinidad and Tobago per the manifesto that our current government, the United National Congress, has put forward. So we're unpacking that manifesto in stages, dissecting different aspects of it to get a better understanding of what our current government's goals and objectives are to move our cannabis movement in the Caribbean forward. So let's jump into it. First of all, we're talking about policy proposals. The UNC has recognized that developing a regulated cannabis industry is an extension of agricultural policy aimed at economic diversification. This is not about encouraging recreational use, but about creating an organized sector that benefits farmers, entrepreneurs, and investors while adhering to international laws. What does that mean in your interpretation?
Well, I do support that once again we're talking about cannabis and attempting to do something positive because we kind of stalled in Trinidad and Tobago. I have to say that from my work as the chair of the CARICOM Commission on Marijuana, and I apologize for the word marijuana, but that's what the commission was called. Really should be cannabis, that's a better term. We looked at it in a more holistic way. So it's not just about agricultural policy or even about economic policy. It's also about social justice. It's about human rights. And I don't have that fear of recreational use that this policy seems to be speaking about. But, we probably need to take some baby steps maybe in terms of the development. We were able to do some decriminalization in Trinidad and Tobago eventually. We're a little late to the table compared to our CARICOM sisters. But we started to do the industrial development, but we didn't get very far. However, I am of the view that when we talk about industry, it should not just be medicinal. And this is something I've been saying from day one. Generally in cannabis, there are all kinds of opportunities for medicinal use as well, but it is broader than medicinal use. There's just as we have other substances, and I know people talk about the alcohol a lot, but cannabis in of itself is not evil. So we also have religious use, of course, with our Rastafarian brothers and sisters. So to just focus on the medicinal industry, which tends to be in the Caribbean, inviting big companies to come in and forgetting our small farmers and entrepreneurs, there are some little dangers that I hope we would not fall into those traps.
Yeah, sort of like pitfalls and potholes along the way.
But it is the right direction generally. And I would also say, again, in terms of the agricultural policy, certainly from the point of view of the university, and also generally, when I say holistic, it's not just about the agriculture, growing the cannabis. The important thing for us is to be doing the research. So, for instance, at the university, this is the third time, I've been writing to the Attorney General to ask for a license for the university to be able to grow in small quantities in order for us to do research, scientific research.
Hold on, wait. Stop the press. You're telling me that the University of the West Indies in St. Augustine does not yet have a cannabis license?
No. Mona has one.
Wow.
Cable, which is not a big grower
right.
of cannabis, by the way. Trinidad is...
But they're heavy on the medical cannabis trail right now.
Well, because they moved ahead.
Correct.
And we didn't, and we were growing more. And so it's not just about growing.
Has a license as well.
Well, there's not really a landed campus there.
Right.
But the thing is that we have more growers in Trinidad. And what we want to do, I have had my faculty of medicine, I have people researching cannabis. In my faculty of sciences, I have people researching and wanting to do more. And of course, agriculture. So it's not just about agriculture, it's not just growing the plant. It's being able to do proper research on the plant, whether it's for medicine, whether it's for other reasons, So yes, so it's a much broader objective.
But isn't the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, the only UE campus that has a faculty of agriculture?
The only one, and the cannabis is such a, in my own work, and I learned a lot along the way, including from our Rastafarians and from our other scientists, as to the uses and this plant. I mean, as you know, it's called the sacred herb. So if you're talking about agriculture, it's not just a question of using it in the way, whether it's smoking it, putting it oils and so on, but also in terms of agricultural policy, it is one of those plants that helps other plants and other crops. Just to give you one example. Then we have all the various uses, whether it's the hemp, whether it's such a broad-based thing, and we tend to be very narrow in our understanding. So we do have a faculty of agriculture, the only one, which has been here for 100 years.
Well, that's part of the rich history of the campus, how you established.
And clearly, we would be able to assist in some of those kinds of agricultural areas, whether it is to help other crops, if you're talking about strict agriculture, but also to work in an interdisciplinary way with our other faculties of science and medicine. But it's not that UE is planning to go and have acres and acres of cannabis, but as I said, but be able to be a resource for those who wish to grow it, how best to grow it, how best to use it, and so on. So it's really sad that we have not been able, and incidentally, the old law allows exemptions, that they can grant licenses even before we change the law. This is the point I've been trying to make. So we've been stuck.
What's the hold up, you think?
I'm not too sure. I think we still need to do a lot of education in terms of cannabis, but also there was a problem, as you know, in the last administration. They had done the bills and there was some little fallout, and I think they backtracked. So this is why I said I'm really happy that the new government is willing to go forward. My only concern is that we go forward in a broader way and we are inclusive in how we go forward, and inclusive both in terms of those who would be in the industry, because you probably know that elsewhere in the Caribbean, and I've said this at St. Vincent and even Jamaica, we've had problems. The persons who have been working in the cannabis industries, growing it and being persecuted and so on, they often are being left out. Whether it's the development of the pharmaceuticals, whether it's the approach that has been taken is not very different to what we did with sugar, what we did with bananas, sort of a very neo-colonial type of outward looking. I've been to Canada, by the way, to look at their cannabis industries, and they're growing it. Oh my God, multi-million dollar industries. They're growing it in their glass houses and so on. They've come to the Caribbean already, cloned our seeds. A whole lot of stuff is happening. So, we have to see it not just in those terms, but in a very inclusive way, and ensure that the persons who actually understand the herb and the industry, and people who have been, again, and Antigua has been leading in this with their apology and understanding the sort of socioeconomic issues in terms of the people who are around. St. Vincent too, they've done some good work, that we think about all those issues when we develop the industry. That is one of my main goals now in terms of industry development. I welcome it, but it cannot be one-sided. It has to be equitable, things like that.